So panics as system crashes. Then Black Woman's son walks in and stuns the whole office. The first alarm blared at 9:17 a.m. Within seconds, every screen in Zenith Tech's executive control room went dark. Code lines froze mid-run, files crashed, and a rising wall of red error messages scrolled like blood across black monitors. System malfunction! We've lost connectivity to the logistics grid. Spencer Calloway, the lead systems engineer, stood paralyzed. Every keystroke he attempted brought up more system failure. His fingers hovered uselessly above the keyboard. At the center of the chaos, CEO Harrison Pratt burst through the glass doors. His tailored navy suit and sleek silver tie looked immaculate, far more than the look on his face. "What the hell is going on?" Harrison demanded, his voice slicing through the room like a whip. "We're losing full operational control. Nodes are collapsing across the global chain. All orders are frozen. Fulfillment queues are emptying into a black hole," Spencer stammered. "Fix it." "I've been trying. It's like someone injected a recursive loop. This isn't just a crash, it's..." "Sabotage?" Harrison cut in, his eyes narrowed. "Are you telling me someone in this room brought down our core system 20 minutes before a live Pentagon demo?" Silence. Then came a voice no one expected. "I think I can help." The voice belonged to a 12-year-old black boy in a red NASA hoodie standing at the edge of the chaos with a calm, curious gaze. Harrison blinked. "Who the hell is this kid?" Before security could be called, the janitor stepped forward. A black woman in her late 40s, tall, poised, her gray-streaked curls pulled back into a bun. Her uniform was crisp, but her eyes burned with sharp intelligence. "He's my son," she said. "His name is Miles. He just wants to take a look." "You brought a child into a restricted systems floor?" Harrison's voice pitched higher, edged with contempt. "I didn't bring him here," she replied. "He followed me in. Because he's worried about your systems more than your people are." Spencer hesitated, then looked at the boy. "You said you can help." Miles nodded, stepping forward. "I've been studying OS architecture since I was 8. The feedback error looks like a memory leak that's cascading through an open endpoint. If you let me, I can run a virtual patch and isolate the breach in under 2 minutes." "That's ridiculous," Harrison snapped. "You're 12. "And your entire platform is offline," Miles replied without flinching. "You want it fixed or you want to keep yelling?" Spencer's fingers twitched. "Let the kid try. We've got nothing else." Miles approached the master console. Harrison watched, fuming, as the boy inserted a flash drive and ran a custom script. Lines of clean code flashed across the monitor, stabilizing the interfaces. "Your error came from a dormant loop embedded in the beta firmware," Miles said. "Whoever compiled your last security patch missed a rollback sequence. I'm writing in a recursive buffer to capture the overflow and push the command structure to a safe stack." "English," Harrison muttered. "He's fixing what your $1 million developers missed," Vanessa replied, folding her arms. 30 seconds later, the lights on the main server panel blinked green. Data modules reconnected. Monitors came back to life. Silence broke with a collective gasp. Spencer turned to Miles. "You actually did it." "He did more than that," Vanessa said softly. "He just saved your reputation, your Pentagon deal, and probably your job." Everyone turned to Harrison. The proud, polished CEO looked stunned, his jaw clenched, his face burning red. You planted this," he hissed. "No janitor and her kid walk in and magically solve a crisis unless they caused it." "I didn't touch your system," Miles said, voice steady. "I fixed what you were too arrogant to see." "That's enough." Vanessa stepped forward. Her voice didn't rise, but the room felt quieter. "You don't have to believe us." But the system logs already recorded the patch Miles created and the fault line he identified. You'll find it matches your update from 3 weeks ago. Internal negligence, not sabotage. Spencer was already checking. "She's right. I remember that patch. We all approved it." A murmur of agreement moved through the room. Vanessa met Harrison's glare with calm certainty. You should ask yourself why you didn't see the problem, or why you ignored everyone too invisible to matter. Then she turned to her son. Come on, Miles. We're done here. They walked out as everyone else stood frozen. Even the security guard didn't move. Only Spencer whispered, "That was incredible." In the hallway, Miles turned to his mom. "Do you think they'll remember?" "Oh, they'll remember," she said with a small smile. "Not because we walked in, but because they never saw us coming." And somewhere deep in the conference room behind them, the CEO stared at a screen now humming with life, haunted by the boy who restored it and the woman who swept past like a storm. The news traveled through Zenith Tech's corridors like wildfire. Whispers chased Vanessa and Miles all the way to the service elevator. Security guards pretending not to stare, engineers suddenly too curious, interns glancing up from their phones. By the time they reached the underground garage, Miles looked up. "You think we'll get in trouble?" Vanessa unlocked the old Honda Civic she used for work. For saving their $1 million contract? I doubt it. But we embarrassed the wrong man in front of the wrong people. That never ends quietly. He paused. "Do you think he'll come after us?" She didn't answer at first, just started the engine. "I think Harrison Pratt doesn't lose well, and men like that, they don't forget the people who made them look small." Upstairs, inside the executive suite, Harrison paced like a trapped animal. His assistant, Claire, stood frozen near the wall. "She humiliated me in front of Spencer, in front of the Pentagon consultants. A janitor. And that boy, he made it look easy." Harrison stopped mid-step. "Did you find out anything on them?" Claire hesitated. "The woman's name is Vanessa Miller. She's been with Zenith Tech for 5 years. Excellent performance reviews, no complaints. Lives in South Seattle, single mother. Kid's name is Miles Miller. No disciplinary record, but there's a flagged test result from a private science competition. Apparently he cracked an encryption protocol that even the judges couldn't verify. And no one's recruited him? He's too young, and she's kept him under the radar, homeschooled after 2nd grade. No digital footprint." "Smart," Harrison muttered. "Very smart." There was a knock at the office door. Spencer stepped in. "I just reviewed the server logs," he said. "Miles's code didn't just patch the breach. He improved our infrastructure, boosted data efficiency by 12% in less than 5 minutes. Harrison barely looked at him. "We need to get ahead of this," Spencer added. "The Pentagon rep saw everything. He was impressed, asked who the kid was. If we move quickly, we could—" "Absolutely not," Harrison snapped. "We are not celebrating a janitor's child as the hero of this company. You think that'll go well with shareholders? They'll ask how a middle schooler outsmarted our entire development team. It'll tank our reputation." Spencer's mouth opened, then shut. "You let this story breathe," Harrison continued, "and every competitor will smell blood. No, we bury this. We discredit them before it spreads." Spencer's eyebrows drew tight. "Discredit? I'll handle it. Just make sure the official report says the failure was caused by external interference. Blame a third-party update vendor. Do not mention Miles Miller. Do not mention the janitor." Outside in her small kitchen later that night, Vanessa sat with a warm mug of tea while Miles tinkered with an old circuit board beside her. "You sure you want to go back tomorrow?" she asked. He nodded. "They won't let me in the server room again, but I want to see what they do next." She smiled faintly. "You're like your father." Miles didn't look up. "You never talk about him." He was brilliant, quiet, the kind of man who could fix the world but never bragged about it. "What happened to him?" Her fingers tightened slightly around the mug. "He tried to protect something that mattered. People like Harrison didn't like that." Miles blinked. "Did they get him fired?" "No," she said quietly. "They got him disappeared." A beat of silence passed. Then Miles said, "That won't happen to us." Vanessa looked at her son with something between fear and pride. "That's what I'm afraid of." The next morning, Vanessa arrived at work to find her employee badge deactivated. Security stopped her at the entrance. "You've been placed on indefinite leave," the guard said, avoiding her eyes, "pending internal investigation." "For what?" "You'll need to contact HR." She stood still. "What about my son? He's not allowed on premises." Back at home, Miles stared at the letter HR sent. It was full of vague accusations: breach of protocol, unauthorized access, violation of cybersecurity policies. "They're blaming us," he said. "They're protecting themselves," Vanessa replied. "You think we should fight it?" She looked at him. "What do you think?" He didn't hesitate. "I think we already started something. Let's finish it." And in that moment, a decision was made, not just to clear their names, but to expose every lie this company tried to bury. They weren't going to run. They were going to make Harrison Pratt wish he'd never underestimated a janitor or her son. Vanessa paced the narrow length of her living room, phone pressed to her ear, fingers trembling, not from fear, but from a fury she could barely contain. Every call she made to HR ended in the same cold, robotic message. "Your case is under internal review. A representative will reach out when further information is available." It had been 48 hours since Zenith Tech locked her out. 48 hours since her son, a child, had salvaged a multi-million-dollar disaster, and they were acting like she was the threat. Across the room, Miles sat cross-legged on the floor, laptop open, fingers flying. His brow furrowed in concentration, mouth set in a tight line. "They scrubbed our access logs," he muttered. "But they're sloppy. They didn't delete the system mirror I created on the backup node." Vanessa paused. "You created a backup?" He looked up. "Of course. Right before I ran the patch. I've been watching how Harrison moves for weeks. Something always felt off." She blinked. Her kid was 12, and he spoke like a cybersecurity analyst with 10 years field experience. "What are you looking for?" she asked. "Evidence that they're framing you, and this." He angled the screen. Lines of code scrolled across it. "There's something else embedded in the system, something that wasn't there before the crash, like a listening program." Vanessa's blood went cold. "You think they planted spyware?" "I think they were trying to hide something. The crash wasn't just a glitch. It was triggered." Before she could respond, a knock thundered at the front door. Vanessa's muscles tensed. Miles looked up, eyes wide. "Stay here," she said, moving cautiously. She opened the door to find two men in suits and badges, flashing too quickly to read. "Ms. Miller?" one of them asked. "Yes?" "We're with the Office of Corporate Cybersecurity Investigations. We have a few questions about your recent activity at Zenith Tech." "Are you here with a warrant?" They exchanged a glance. "Not at this time, but it would be in your best interest to cooperate." Behind her, Miles crept closer, just within earshot. "Let me be clear," Vanessa said, voice steady. "Until I see something official, you're not stepping foot in my house. Now kindly get off my porch." She shut the door. "Miles," she said quietly, "grab your laptop and get in the car." "Where are we going?" "To someone who owes me a favor." They drove across the city, weaving through traffic until the towering glass facade of the Seattle Chronicle appeared ahead. Inside, they met with Zoe Ramirez, an old college friend of Vanessa's, who now worked as an investigative reporter. "You're saying Zenith Tech orchestrated their own crash?" Zoe asked, recording device already rolling. "I'm saying my son fixed it in 5 minutes, and now they're blaming us for it," Vanessa said. Zoe leaned back. "Why would they sabotage themselves?" Miles chimed in. "Because they're hiding something. I think it's about the Defense AI project. The one they claimed was still in beta, but I found references to deployment modules and encrypted routing paths. stuff that suggests it's already in use. Zoe's eyes widened. If they've been lying about that and the Pentagon finds out, they'll lose everything, Vanessa finished. Zoe looked between them. I can run this story, but I'll need more than speculation. I need proof. Documents, testimony, system records. Miles nodded. I can get that, but I need time. Vanessa reached out, placing a hand on Zoe's. Just be ready. Once this hits, they'll come after all of us. That night, as Miles sifted through encrypted archives from their safe backup, something caught his eye, a document labeled Containment Protocol, Project Sable. He clicked it open. Mom, he said slowly, you're not gonna believe this. The file outlined a contingency plan for a total digital lockdown, triggered if classified tech was accessed by unauthorized personnel. The protocol included blacklisting identities, rerouting credit histories, and they can wipe someone off the map, Miles whispered. Digitally, no records, no job, no apartment lease, nothing. Vanessa's face went pale. This is what happened to your father. He worked for them? She nodded. Before you were born, he was a senior architect on the original Sable program. When he tried to go public, they made it look like he vanished. No death certificate, no trace. I only survived because I had friends who knew how to hide people. Miles stared at the screen, stunned. We need to leak this, he said. The public needs to see it. We will, Vanessa replied, steel in her voice. But we're not just leaking files. We're burning their lies to the ground. Every single one. Outside their window, a black SUV idled for too long before pulling away. They didn't notice. They were already deep into building the digital bomb that would change everything. The storm hit just before dawn. Not the kind that rattles windows and floods the streets, but the kind that lives in inboxes, boardrooms, and breaking news tickers. By 7 o'clock a.m., a confidential memo from Zenith Tech had been leaked to a dozen media outlets. The headlines swept across phones like wildfire. Whistleblower reveals government-affiliated Project Sable and the targeting of innocent employees. By 8 o'clock a.m., Vanessa Miller's name was trending nationally, and by 8:05, CEO Graham Whitaker was pacing his penthouse office with a phone glued to his ear and sweat collecting at his temples. You said this was contained, he hissed into the line. We had the woman terminated. We revoked her clearance. She's a nobody, replied a voice from the other end, someone buried deep in the Department of Advanced Technology Operations. She's not a nobody, Whitaker growled. She's got the damn media, she's got encrypted files, and she's got public opinion forming faster than our PR team can draft a statement. He turned toward the wall-length window behind his desk, the Seattle skyline bathed in morning haze. Fix it, he snapped, before she drags us all down with her. But down the street, in the unassuming basement of an old university server lab, Vanessa wasn't thinking about Graham. She was focused on the next move. Miles, now operating on 2 hours of sleep and 3 energy drinks, tapped at his keyboard with laser precision. You're sure this will hold? She asked, her voice low but urgent. I've tripled the encryption, distributed fragments across 6 dead networks. Even if they shut us down, I can restore the whole package in 2 minutes. Vanessa nodded, impressed and deeply worried. And the trigger? Programmed and ready. If anything happens to either of us, the full report dumps to every major media outlet, Congress, and 4 watchdog orgs. She leaned back. I really hate that we had to build a kill switch. Miles looked up. But we did. Because this is bigger than us. A soft knock came at the door. Zoe Ramirez stepped in, a duffel bag slung over her shoulder and a tired smile on her face. I brought burner phones, hard drives, and some favors I shouldn't have called in before noon, she said. Also, I have something you're gonna want to hear. She opened her laptop and played a recorded voicemail. The voice was unmistakable. Harrison Blake, the same Zenith Tech exec who had personally fired Vanessa. "Look, I know this isn't clean, but if Project Sable gets out, we're all screwed. They've already erased 3 people. Vanessa was supposed to disappear too. I didn't know her kid was a damn prodigy." Vanessa's face froze. He admitted to attempted erasure. Zoe nodded. "This is admissible. If we go public, it could start a DOJ inquiry." But Miles frowned. "They'll see it coming. They'll shift the narrative." "Then we hit them somewhere they can't spin," Vanessa said. A plan started to form. That night, they sent anonymous packages to 3 influential lawmakers known for pushing digital privacy legislation. Inside each, encrypted files, screenshots, audio clips, and a single note. "If you believe in protecting American citizens from digital annihilation, start here." Then Vanessa walked into Zenith Tech HQ the next morning like she'd never been fired. Security guards glanced up, confused and unsure. "Vanessa Miller?" one of them said, rising from behind the desk. "I'm here for a meeting with the board," she replied smoothly. "Ma'am, your credentials have been deactivated. I'm going to have to ask you to wait." She smiled calmly, pulled out a paper envelope and slid it across the desk. It was a subpoena. Within 15 minutes, the conference room was filled with panicked executives, 1 legal counsel and Vanessa Miller sitting across the table, arms folded. "You fired me because I fixed your system," she said, "and then you tried to destroy my reputation, my family, everything." Whitaker was the last to enter, his face tight. "Vanessa, don't," she cut in. "The room is being recorded. Every word you say here goes into the official testimony submitted to the Senate Oversight Committee." One of the board members looked nauseous. Another leaned back and whispered something to the attorney beside her. "Unless you're ready to go to prison," Vanessa continued, "you'll give me full immunity. You'll issue a public statement clearing my name. You'll reinstate every blacklisted employee and disband Sable, effective immediately. You can't make demands like this." Whitaker snapped, but Vanessa didn't flinch. She stood and walked to the center of the room. Then, slowly, she placed a USB drive on the table. "This contains every record of Sable's activity, every erased name, every unauthorized use. If I disappear, that goes live in 10 minutes. The room fell silent. "No one in this room walks away clean unless I say so," she added. At the door, 2 FBI agents, quietly tipped off by Zoe, waited to escort Whitaker out. The CEO's face collapsed in on itself. Fury turned to panic. He tried to speak, but no words came. Vanessa leaned in. "Next time you try to erase someone, make sure they didn't raise a genius." She turned and walked out, her heels clicking with finality. Miles was waiting outside, earbuds in, playing lo-fi music, as if this were just another Thursday. "Ready?" she asked. He looked up. "They're gonna write about this, you know." "Good," she smiled. "Let them." They stepped into the sunlight, no longer running. "If you're ready, I'll continue with Chapter 5 next." The overhead lights flickered as the entire office fell into an eerie, uncertain silence. Seconds before, the conference room had been buzzing with shouting executives and panicked department heads. But now every eye was fixed on a teenager, 16-year-old Carter Monroe, seated calmly in front of a massive command monitor that had just come back online. Behind him, his mother, Donna Monroe, stood tall and composed. The once-dismissed janitor in disguise now carried herself with a quiet authority that felt completely out of place in her gray custodial uniform. But that didn't matter anymore. The illusion was breaking. Carter's fingers danced across the keyboard. "There," he muttered. "You were under a recursive loop in the security shell. The firewall misread a batch of internal API calls as a DDoS attack and blocked its own central hub." Silence. Then a burst of nervous murmuring filled the room. How did he just?" one senior engineer mumbled, pushing his glasses up his nose. Wait, gasped another tech lead. Is that Dana's son? CEO Max Hargrove stormed forward, still breathing hard from the panic. Kid, who are you? He demanded, voice cracking. Who told you to touch our system? Carter looked up, unbothered. Your system crashed because your in-house engineers patched the wrong kernel. I just saved your company. Dana took a single step forward. Maybe now you'll start asking the right questions, Max. But Max wasn't done. He jabbed a finger toward Carter. This is a security violation. You could have exposed proprietary data. You're not even authorized. Neither were your outsourced coders in Kiev, Carter interrupted, eyes steely. And yet they're the reason your entire network nearly took down the financials of every client you have. The room froze. Dana raised her chin. Do you really want to talk about authorization after what I've seen working nights here? After what I overheard during your board calls and the casual conversations you thought no one noticed? A junior project manager, Rosa Alvarez, looked like she wanted to sink through the floor. Wait, Dana's been listening to us? She's been cleaning our floors and fixing our servers, Carter said. The ones your team kept ignoring. Max turned red. I don't know what this is, but I won't be blackmailed. No one's blackmailing you, Dana replied. We're just exposing what you tried to bury. She walked to the center of the room, slowly removing her ID badge and tossing it on the table. You want truth? She said. Here's the truth. I used to work for the Pentagon's cybersecurity division. Before that, DARPA. I didn't take this job because I needed to scrub tiles. I took it because I needed to watch. Watch what? Rosa asked, voice barely above a whisper. The rot, Dana said. The discrimination. The systemic dismissal of anyone who didn't look like they came from your recruiting pool. Max scoffed. This is nonsense. You're trying to paint this as... I'm trying to paint it as real, Dana said sharply. You called Carter a janitor's kid and dismissed him, but he holds 2 international coding competition wins and just patched your $1 million mess in 10 minutes. A stunned hush fell again. I gave you the chance to see past your bias, Dana continued. I warned you during my first week that your systems weren't secure. You laughed and told me to mop up a coffee spill. Her eyes landed on Andrew Becker, the VP of Engineering, who now looked like he wanted to vanish into his swivel chair. I remember that, he muttered. You did warn us. And now you know, Dana said. I was sent here by the board. Max blinked. The board? Dana stepped forward, pulled a folded letter from her pocket, and handed it to him. He tore it open, read, then staggered. It was a confidential mandate. The board had secretly embedded an anonymous evaluator into each high-priority department after a series of complaints about toxic management and discrimination. Dana Monroe was that evaluator. You lied to us? Max stammered. You lied to yourselves, Dana said coldly. I gave you months to reveal your true colors. You did. And now the board has the full report. Max dropped into a chair like someone had taken the ground from under him. What's happening now? Rosa asked nervously. Carter leaned back. There's going to be a review, massive restructuring, and probably a few people who'll be polishing their resumes by Monday. And what about us? Andrew asked. Dana turned to him. Those who supported transparency, listened, tried to do better. They'll have a place in the new structure. The rest will have to reckon with what they built. Max looked like he wanted to argue, but no words came. A knock sounded at the door. It was 2 men in suits, corporate audit officials with clearance badges already displayed. One carried a clipboard. The other had a tablet streaming live from the board. Ms. Monroe, one said, we're ready to begin. Dana gave Carter a proud nod and followed them out. But just before leaving, she turned and looked at the entire room. Next time you see someone mopping your floor or fixing your cable, she said, You might want to ask their story before you judge their worth. As the door closed behind her, silence ruled the room again, and in that silence, every employee, every manager, was forced to sit with the reality that they hadn't just failed a test. They had failed a person, and she had passed with honors. The boardroom that once echoed with arrogance now felt suffocatingly quiet. For the first time since Dana Monroe had entered the building, every executive in the company was on edge. The internal audit team had set up temporary HQ in Max Hargrove's office, transforming it into a battlefield of spreadsheets, access logs, and recorded conversations. Dana sat at the far end of the room, watching everything unfold with the calm of someone who had already fought this war before. Max, on the other hand, looked like a man unraveling thread by thread. His face was pale, the once confident bravado replaced with a twitch in his jaw and sweat beads forming under his collar. The audit team had just requested access to his private server, and now he was stalling. "That folder is confidential," Max snapped at the lead auditor, Greg Larson. "It contains contracts, private client correspondence, sensitive materials." Greg didn't even flinch. "Then you shouldn't have routed those materials through personal cloud storage, Max. The board has cleared us to review anything relevant to the investigation." Dana leaned forward, voice smooth. "You always said you had nothing to hide. Was that just for show?" Max shot her a glare, but said nothing. Carter entered the room again, laptop under his arm. He had become the quiet star of the entire floor. Engineers nodded when he passed. HR whispered his name like a ghost story. Everyone had seen the surveillance replay of him stabilizing the entire system in under 12 minutes. He slid into the chair next to his mother and opened his laptop. "I pulled metadata from Max's remote server," he said, his voice flat but charged. "There are deleted messages, emails between him and the European contractors, where he orders them to cut corners on encryption. That's what caused the vulnerability." "You can't prove that," Max said too quickly. Carter didn't look up. "Actually, I can. You never cleared your cache, and your VPN logs, they're time-stamped to every remote command you issued." A low murmur swept through the room. One of the auditors scribbled rapidly. Greg narrowed his eyes. "Max, is this true?" Max stammered. It's not what it looks like. I was trying to reduce overhead, the company's margins." "You endangered the data of every one of your clients," Dana interrupted. "And when the system failed, you planned to blame a junior technician who's been fighting to keep this place afloat." Max turned defensive. "You think you're some kind of hero? You manipulated your way into this place. You tricked us into trusting you." Dana's voice was steel. "No, you never trusted me. You assumed I was invisible, and I used that." Greg stood up. "That's enough. This conversation is no longer internal. Mr. Hargrove, due to the evidence presented, your access is revoked immediately." Max bolted upright. "You can't do that. I'm still CEO." "Not anymore," came another voice from the doorway. Everyone turned. It was Grace Lynn, chairwoman of the board, dressed in a tailored navy blue suit that looked like it could cut glass. She walked into the room flanked by 2 legal officers and a silent but deadly-looking security guard. Her eyes found Dana first. "Ms. Monroe, we've read your full report, and I wanted to deliver this news in person." Then she turned to Max. "You're suspended effective immediately, pending legal review. The board has appointed Dana Monroe interim CTO to oversee system integrity and ethical restructuring." Max's mouth dropped open. "She's a janitor. She's a systems engineer with more classified experience than you could dream of," Grace snapped. "And she's been doing your job in the background while you played golf and covered up negligence. You can't do this." "I already have." The guard stepped forward. Max took a step back. "I built this company." "No," Dana said quietly. "You built a facade. The people holding it up, people like Rosa, like Jerome in logistics, like Carter, kept it standing. You just kept taking credit. Max's shoulders sagged as the guard escorted him out. For the first time, he didn't shout. He didn't threaten lawsuits. He just looked hollow. When the door closed, the silence was thick with awe. Grace turned back to Dana. You'll have full authority to restructure the tech division, clean house where necessary, and if you choose to remain with us long-term, we'd be honored. Dana smiled slightly. Let's focus on fixing what's broken first. As the room slowly began to breathe again, Carter leaned close and whispered, "That was kind of awesome." Dana chuckled. It's not over yet. Outside the boardroom, the news had already begun to spread. Employees gathered near their desks in tight circles, whispering updates, eyes wide with disbelief. In the cafeteria, Rosa stood frozen in front of the wall-mounted screen, which now displayed a live feed of the internal memo. Max Hargrove removed. Interim leadership effective immediately. She looked up at Jerome, who was shaking his head slowly. I never thought I'd see the day. She earned it, Rosa said quietly. We all saw it. In the hallways, in the offices, something new was stirring. Respect. And not just for Dana, but for every voice that had been ignored, every warning dismissed, every brilliant idea that had been stolen or overlooked. The floor no longer felt like a pressure chamber. It felt like possibility. Back in her new temporary office, Max's former one, Dana stood at the window looking out at the city. Her reflection in the glass wasn't the same woman who had walked in a month ago pushing a mop cart. She had come in invisible. Now she was impossible to ignore. And Carter, quietly watching from the corner, knew this was only the beginning. Dana Monroe had barely sat down in the CEO's chair, temporarily, according to Grace Lynn, when the storm truly began. The announcement of Max Hargrove's suspension had caused an internal earthquake. There were leaks to the press, panicked texts from external partners, and a sudden influx of resignation emails from executives who realized their roles were under scrutiny. But Dana didn't flinch. She had expected backlash. What she didn't expect was just how deep the rot had spread. The next morning, Rosa burst into Dana's new office, her face flushed. You need to see this, Rosa said, waving a folder that looked like it had been dug out from behind a cabinet. Dana opened it slowly. It was filled with internal memos, whistleblower complaints, and overlooked warnings, some of which had her own name attached to anonymous submissions from months ago. They buried this, Rosa said, her voice tight. And I think Max wasn't the only one doing the burying. Dana scanned the memos. One in particular caught her eye, an old complaint from a network technician named Ellis Palmer. He had flagged the very same server vulnerabilities Carter had uncovered. That was nearly a year ago. Where's Ellis now? Transferred to warehouse ops, told he wasn't technical material after a performance review. Dana stood. Get him in here. Now. Within the hour, Ellis Palmer sat across from Dana, clearly unsure whether he was about to be reprimanded or vindicated. I remember you, Dana said calmly. You were the one who flagged server-level encryption mismatches last year. He blinked. Yeah, I submitted the report to Max's office. Never heard back. You will now. They brought Ellis on to the internal review task force immediately, alongside Rosa and Carter. But that was only the beginning. Dana launched a department-wide audit of how many ideas, innovations, and concerns had been silenced, rebranded, or simply ignored, especially those from women, black employees, and junior staff. What surfaced was devastating. One by one, names emerged, ideas pitched by interns that were stolen and credited to VPs. Solutions dismissed until a more marketable voice repeated them. Problems overlooked until they exploded. And then came the twist Dana never saw coming. It was late, past 11 p.m., and the office was nearly empty. Dana was combing through flagged emails when she found one with a peculiar subject line. Project Phoenix. Hush hush per Hargrove. Attached were threads that made her blood run cold. Apparently, Max hadn't been working alone. One of the board members, Marcus Bell, the head of legal and compliance, had knowingly helped suppress legal filings and pushed whistleblower complaints into administrative purgatory. He had even advised Max on how to avoid SEC detection by rewording disclosure documents. Dana printed everything and paced. Grace Lynn had trusted Marcus. The man was practically her consigliere. Exposing him meant ripping open more than just company liability. It would shake the entire leadership tree. But Dana knew what she had to do. She set a meeting with Grace the next morning. Grace arrived guarded. "What's this about, Dana?" Dana laid out the documents on the table, each one marked and organized with Carter's digital forensics. The deeper Grace read, the tighter her jaw became. When she got to the final page, she didn't look up for a long moment. Then, "You're telling me Marcus Bell colluded to protect Hargrove?" "I'm telling you he enabled a culture of silence, and I have proof he obstructed multiple internal investigations." Grace looked stunned, not angry, just deeply, almost personally betrayed. "Do you understand what this means?" she said quietly. "He's not just on the board. He's on the city's Business Integrity Council. He has friends in D.C. Dana nodded. "And I'm not asking for a press release. I'm asking for a reckoning, internally, fully transparent. No more backroom protection." Grace exhaled sharply. "Do you have any idea what kind of war this will unleash?" Dana's voice didn't waver. "I didn't come this far to stop at convenient justice. We either fix the whole thing or we're just painting over mold." After a long silence, Grace finally leaned back. "All right, start prepping the documentation. The board meets Friday. This goes in front of all of them." Rosa and Carter were waiting when Dana stepped out. "She believes you?" Rosa asked. Dana gave a small nod. "Enough to let me finish what I started. But it was Carter who voiced what no one else dared. They're gonna come for you now. You know that, right? People like Marcus don't go quietly." Dana didn't blink. "Then let them come." 2 days later, she entered the boardroom with a binder under her arm and fire in her blood. The room was packed. The full board, legal counsel, auditors, even representatives from the ethics committee. Marcus Bell sat near the head of the table, calm, dressed sharply, sipping water like it was just another Friday. Dana stood at the front. "Before I begin, I want to be clear," she said. "This isn't about a vendetta. It's about accountability. Real accountability, not the performative kind that dies in policy drafts." She laid out everything. Dates, emails, audit trails. She showed how Marcus had circumvented protocol, coached Hargrove through multiple ethical breaches, and even shut down 3 employee-led innovation proposals to protect a licensing deal with an external firm he secretly invested in. The final blow came when Dana dropped a thumb drive on the table. Security footage of Marcus meeting with Hargrove 2 nights before the breach. No formal meeting scheduled, no record in the company calendar. The room went dead silent. Marcus tried to laugh. "You're basing this on grainy video and assumptions? Come on, Dana. You really think you're going to take me down with tech detective theatrics?" Dana didn't flinch. "No, but I think your own words might." She pressed play on an audio clip. "Just get her off the premises. I don't care how you spin it. Breach of conduct, access violation, something. She's a custodian. She doesn't belong in R&D. Marcus's voice, clear as glass. The air was sucked out of the room. By the time the audio stopped, Grace stood. "This board votes to suspend Marcus Bell pending full independent investigation." Security entered without a word. Marcus stood up, rattled now. "You don't understand. If I go down, you all go down. You think your little moral crusade is going to save this company?" "No," Dana said, "but it might just rebuild it." As Marcus was led away, the energy in the room shifted. Dana hadn't just exposed a fraud, she had cracked open the shield that had protected generations of corruption, quiet, strategic, and always one step above consequence. When she walked out, the hallway was lined with staff who had watched the hearing through internal live stream. No one said a word, but the applause started quietly, from a junior analyst, then a manager, then the entire floor. And for the first time, Dana didn't feel like an outsider walking into a room full of suits. She felt like the woman they had all been waiting for. The morning after Marcus Bell's removal, a storm of headlines erupted across every major news outlet. Tech giant implodes under corruption scandal. CEO suspended, board member expelled. Custodian turned leader exposes high-level cover-up. But inside the building where it all happened, something even more remarkable was unfolding. Dana Monroe didn't walk into the office through the back loading dock anymore. That morning, she stepped through the front entrance of Halcyon Systems, the polished marble floors catching her reflection. But for once, she wasn't focused on keeping her head down. People stood up when she entered, not out of obligation, but respect. Rosa was already waiting in the glass conference room with Carter and Ellis Palmer. A fresh pot of coffee steamed on the table, untouched. Everyone was silent, waiting. Dana sat, laid down her notebook, and simply said, "Let's get to work." What followed wasn't dramatic. There was no cinematic music, no explosions. Just change. Real, hard-earned, overdue change. Dana implemented a new equity framework for innovation recognition. From now on, junior employees and interns were allowed to present proposals directly to the Innovation Board, without needing VP sponsorship. She created an anonymous channel monitored by a third-party ethics firm to protect whistleblowers. Pay audits were launched across departments. But the real surprise came when Grace Lynn, usually composed and corporate to a fault, walked into a quarterly town hall and made a statement no one saw coming. "Effective immediately," Grace said, standing beside Dana in front of hundreds of Halcyon staffers. "Dana Monroe will serve as Acting Chief Innovation Officer." A stunned silence hit the room. Carter whispered under his breath, "Whoa, CIO," from the janitor's closet to the C-suite. Dana didn't beam. She didn't cry. She simply nodded and stepped up to the microphone. "When my son walked in that day, all I wanted was for him to be safe. I never expected that moment would unravel decades of injustice, or that I'd be standing here. But maybe that's the point. Because sometimes it's the people you overlook, the ones you push aside, who hold the power to rebuild everything." The applause was thunderous, but it wasn't the ending. Later that afternoon, Dana visited the janitor's closet one last time. The mop bucket was still there. So were her coveralls, folded on the shelf. She took a photo of them and texted it to Carter with a single line. "Don't ever forget where you came from." He replied with an emoji. She smirked. Some things never change. But as she left the closet, she nearly collided with a teenager standing just outside. He was maybe 16, holding a visitor badge and wearing a baggy hoodie. Nervous. "You lost?" she asked. He looked startled. "I'm here for the code showcase. My school, Lincoln High." Dana's eyes lit up. "You like to build things?" He nodded. "Yeah, mostly I fix things. My laptop's janky, but I got Linux running on it last week." She smiled, remembering Carter doing the same with a toaster once. "Come on, I'll walk you to the showcase." As they walked, the boy glanced at her. "Are you the lady from the news?" Dana looked at him sideways. "What do you think?" He smiled wide. "I think you're a legend." Dana chuckled. "Let's just say, I clean more than floors now." He burst out laughing. But as the elevator doors closed behind them, she looked at his reflection. Young, curious, full of promise. And suddenly she realized this wasn't her story ending. It was just the beginning of another one. Outside the building, protesters gathered, not in outrage, but in solidarity. Signs read, "Justice for Innovators. Equity isn't optional. Dana for CEO." A few of the protesters were former Halcyon employees, people who had been pushed out for speaking up. Now they stood tall, energized by the ripple effect of one woman's stand. Marcus Bell was under investigation, facing both corporate liability and federal charges. Max Hargrove's executive clearance was permanently revoked, and news broke that 3 other VPs had quietly stepped down under review. Meanwhile, Dana made sure Halcyon's doors opened wider than ever. Hiring initiatives reached overlooked communities. Local coding boot camps were funded. Internships became paid opportunities, especially for first-gen college students, and kids like Carter used to be. Brilliant, underestimated, but resilient. The final board meeting of the quarter was open to the press. When asked what her biggest takeaway from the crisis had been, Donna answered without hesitation. That leadership isn't about position, it's about courage, and that sometimes the janitor understands the system better than the CEO because they've had to clean up the mess. Her words trended for days, and now, to you, yes, you reading this or watching it, if you've ever felt like your voice didn't matter, like your seat at the table was conditional or invisible, I hope Dana's story reminds you that you are not invisible. You matter. Your voice matters. Change doesn't always start with power. It starts with truth, with resilience, with showing up. Even when they expect you to stay silent. If this story moved you, if it made you think differently, or made you feel seen, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and join a growing community that believes stories can move mountains and rewrite what justice looks like. Because here we don't just tell stories, we tell the truth. And the truth, it's louder than power.